You're listening to Fraud Feed, your finger on the pulse of the latest news and trends in insurance fraud prevention. Brought to you by the Coalition Against Insurance Fraud. Insurance fraud hurts everyone, and it's important to know how it can affect you and what you can do to fight against it.
Hello, this is your host, David Veach, coming to you with Fraud Feed.
People came to Dr. Farid Fata. They needed hope. Many were desperate for a miracle cure. They had cancer, the disease that can eat you alive, cell by tiny cell. But Fata had another agenda. Cancer meant cash. Malignancy meant money. The doctor from Detroit created a factory line of insurance fraud. He churned out worthless cancer treatments, like a tumor gone wild. $225 million in false insurance claims. Fata lived in a lavish mansion in a fancy suburb, while many of his patients got weaker and sicker. He poisoned more than 500 people who trusted him with their lives and health. Often he saw them for just 3 minutes, yet somehow gave these patients life-altering diagnoses of cancer. Federal prosecutor Barbara McQuaid led the team that convicted Fata.
It was the most egregious instance of healthcare fraud I've ever seen, because we often get cases where doctors are submitting false billing records where they're stating that they provided medical procedures to patients that were not actually provided, or they're doing things that are medically unnecessary, and they're doing it because they want to make money. But I haven't seen a case like this one where the doctor was actually causing actual patient harm.
Many patients did have cancer. Fata routinely blasted them with far more painful treatments than they needed, so he could make inflated insurance claims. Many patients were perfectly healthy. They had no cancer. Yet Fata told them they were ill, so he could pump them up with useless chemotherapy and make bogus insurance claims. Sick or healthy, Fata's patients were all worth insurance money. The patients were his slot machines, and Fata hit the jackpot with each false diagnosis. They suffered greatly as the drugs launched mass attacks on their cells and suppressed their immune systems. This often lasted for months, or even years at a time. Louis Sicoccio heads up the National Healthcare Anti-Fraud Association.
Healthcare fraud is not just a financial crime. It is a crime that many times affects patients adversely, both their health, their emotional health as well, and really has a negative impact on the quality of medical care overall. So it's a very serious problem.
Fata blasted one healthy man with 155 treatments in just 2 years. Another patient lost both of his legs to Fata's treatments, yet others had brittle bones that broke easily. Some patients became so weak that they lost their jobs and homes and were forced into bankruptcy. He lied to Patty Hester that she was going to die. And guess what? She was healthy. The stress caused her hair to fall out. She went into deep depression and started smoking and drinking. Robert Sobere suffered another fate. Fata said he had a rare kind of blood cancer. The terrifying diagnosis? Sobere was terminal. It was all a lie. Fata raked him with useless chemo. All of Sobere's teeth fell out, and his body twitched uncontrollably.
Many of them later found out that they did not have cancer and were relieved to find out they did not have cancer. They still had permanent damage from the chemotherapy that they received, things like loss of teeth, organ damage, nerve damage, and those are things they're going to live with for the rest of their lives.
Another patient fell and hurt his head at Fata's office. The guy was seriously injured, dazed and bleeding. Yet Fata made him get a full battery of chemo treatment before allowing him to go to the hospital. The patient later died from the head injury. Some patients were dying and had no chance of survival. They just wanted to go peacefully. Instead, Fata turned their final weeks or months into pain they didn't deserve. He blasted them with poisonous drugs they didn't need and couldn't heal. Cancer is serious business, just like any other medical condition. Not all medical conditions are serious, so do your homework before you go into treatment. That could be life-changing.
Dr. Fata was a very well-regarded doctor. He was very successful in his practice, and I think it would never have occurred to anyone to think that he might be outright lying to them.
Most important, get a second and third opinion from other cancer specialists. Bring all of your paperwork with you for careful scrutiny. Also, Be wary if the doctor seems evasive or vague about the details of your condition. Trust your instinct, that little inner voice. And finally, report any suspected scams to your insurance provider.
Many patients go into a physician, they trust that physician, they trust that that physician is doing what's in their best interest, and when it's not the case, it may be very difficult for that patient to realize it until it's too late.
Insurance fraud is one disease we can cure. This has been your host, David Veach.
This has been Fraud Feed, brought to you by the Coalition Against Insurance Fraud. Find more resources and listen to past episodes at insurancefraud.org. For questions or comments, email coalition@insurancefraud.org. We value your feedback. Please consider leaving us a review. And if you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast feed or follow us on SoundCloud so you never miss a show. Thanks for tuning in.